Throughout my entire career on YouTube for Raid Shadow Legends, I've been pretty much asked the same question, consistently at least, since day one. That question has always been, why do you always showcase perfect, I'm going to use that term lightly, overpowered, overgeared for whatever content we're doing? Why do I always showcase champions in that format in most videos that I do? So I do want to talk about that now because there is a reason as to why I do that, and it doesn't have to do with flexing or showing you guys insane numbers or any of that. There's a deeper meaning that quite a few people have picked up on, but there's still a decent portion saying, why don't you just use realistic gear? And I kind of want to talk about the harmful effect that can have, surprisingly, on the player base when they do watch any type of showcase or content kind of guide or example. So let's dive straight into it. What up, team? It is your MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, talking about exactly what I was talking about in the intro to this, why I gear my champions so well. As we can see here, I have a Rotos. If I was going to do any video on Rotos, I would be using the gear we see in front of us. Savage, cruel gear, very good stats. Granted, he is +4 with 1 awakening, but 7,000 attack, 305% crit damage, obviously 100% crit rate, 228 speed on top of it all. The rest of the stats don't matter. The HP does matter, 43,000 HP. And as well, the defense is slightly below the, I guess, diminishing return point of 4,000 defense. However, if he does get increased defense, that number is going to be a lot closer. So the question remains, and I just realized we also have the Revenge Ring as well as Revenge Banner, so 5% chances to counterattack when hit. Pretty OP on top of this is just because it's a triple roll on reaction, does nothing for Rotos because he has that awesome passive as well. So why do I do it? Why do I always showcase champions? And it's to show you guys that, I guess I have to preface this kind of the opposing way. So if I show you guys a video with Rotos and I do not gear him the best it possibly can get as far as my account will allow, it's going to make players with better accounts than mine look at it saying, okay, I mean, I cannot compare to this, right? They're not going to be able to compare to it. Kind of like how people who don't have this gear, they can't compare to it, but there's an upside to that reverse point, and there's not to the lower side. So I've criticized many content creators many times, I don't have to remind you guys that, about how they gear their champions and how it's kind of harmful. I've never really gone into detail, so I will do that now. 100% crit rate. You should never showcase any type of a nuker, damage dealer, whatever you want to call it, without 100% crit rate. I don't care what your math reasoning is behind 99% crit rate being better. If you can squeeze out a little bit more crit damage, a little bit more attack, or a lot more crit damage and a lot more attack, because it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because this is a game that efficiency is king. Nothing, and I mean nothing, literally nothing, is more important and more valuable in this game than efficiency. There is nothing more efficient than 100% chance to crit. It's that simple. Nothing more. I mean, of course you have weak affinities, so and all of that stuff, but none of that matters because even though the game labels it as -15 crit rate, we've already debunked that and how that's wrong. So 100% crit rate no matter what. I've actually checked out some newer content creators in my absence, something I rarely do, but I figured I haven't looked at any content creators in like a year. Not that I did too much before, but I was at least aware of them. But now no one really talks about them in my circle of Raid Shadow Legends, nor do kind of the comments in my videos. So I said, hey, I know there's a bunch of new people. I'm in the content creator chat. I've looked at some of their videos and I've seen some of their stats, and it's made me never watch another video again. Just from that initial approach of looking at, I don't know, I think it was like 87% crit rate on a nuker. I'm pretty sure the nuker was Trunda, and there was some justification behind that. Or someone for Hydra that had an A1 doing insane AoE damage to the Hydra heads, and they didn't have them crit capped, and they had no crit buff, no crit aura. I made sure I looked to understand the full context, and I instantly closed it, and I never checked out these creators again. Now, am I kind of like saying they're terrible content creators? No. I just think it's a very harmful thing to do because no matter what, Even if you say you need 100% crit rate, which they rarely do by the way, they never even mention it, but even if you do, you have so many people watching you saying, oh, they're doing this, that must mean this is okay. So getting back to my point as to why I kind of overgear champions, this is to show you that they are still viable beyond what the average player has. Eventually, everyone's going to reach a point where you're going to have very strong gear unless you quit the game. It is what it is. I've been doing account takeovers forever. I've seen accounts that I worked on a long time ago, and they are now in the clan I'm in. You guys want an example of that? Sure. Even though you didn't ask, I'm going to tell you. Someone I did an account takeover for a long time ago is currently in the clan that I'm currently in right now. I mean, there's a few people, but one that stands out. His name is Smiley TK. He's also a fantastic content creator. This I know, if you've ever seen me stream, he's dropped by the stream many times here. So this is what I'm talking about here. If someone like Smiley, if you go all the way back in time to when he first started out, this is why it matters. He now has champions that could do the same amount of damage that I was doing at the time, and it stayed true all the way up until this point. So if he sees someone showcase a champion with like average stats and they're not performing well, he's gonna say, okay, I don't think this champion's good. But if I take that same champion, put the best of the best on him, and then determine he's still not performing well, that's an easy champion for me to kind of look at and say, okay, he's not going to be as valuable throughout the entirety of the game. Is he going to be valuable for your account where you are? That's up to you based on what I'm showcasing. What his synergies are, what his skills do, the stuns, CC, whatever he has, you can always translate from a video in the downwards, meaning from the higher gear to the lower gear. You cannot do that in the upwards. You cannot say, oh, if he's hitting this hard with 180% crit damage and 87% crit rate, he's going to be that much better once I have gear kind of like the gear that I showcase on my rotos. That's not always the case. You want to know how I know that's not always the case? Because people often refer to multipliers. They say, well, Murder, giving someone out in the best gear possible doesn't really matter anymore because we have access to multipliers. That cannot be true for the following reason. The top 3 highest AoE damage dealers in the entire game are not used in the arena. Why? Why is that the case? Thea, Ruel, Robar. Why are those 3 champions not used? It's because of the condition that you need to use those champions in the setting does not fit and does not match. So I've made a video on Robar. I gave him 400% crit damage before Empowerment came out. I wanted to see how good I could make this champion. And even then I said, he's really good, but the nuance of his synergy and condition behind getting that damage is too hard to pull off in an arena setting. I mean, at the time it wasn't as hard, but as we have gone through the meta, stone skin gear, reaction gear, it just wasn't as realistic. So that is one small example. Another one's going to be Helicath. I talked about him in a video I did a couple days ago and how he was viewed as this amazing champion for all players, but that really wasn't the case. If you were progressed far enough into the game, Helicath was quite literally a vault character, or someone you could skip altogether. So with that being said, it all comes down to how you showcase the champion and what kind of gear you showcase the champion in. If I did not showcase Helicath in very strong gear, then people would have gone under the assumption that if I put him in the best gear, I can continue using him in the dungeon farming, in the Doom Tower waves, all the way to the end game of the game Raid Shadow Legends, which is not going to be the case because he is easily outshined by other champions that are much better than him with equivalent or lower gear simply based on their kits and the synergies that they do provide. Now this may sound like something very simple for someone to notice. It might be for you for sure. However, I've noticed, and I can tell you for a fact from the comments and the takeovers that I've done, that it's just not the case across the board, which is why I always make sure I use the best gear possible. Another thing is going to be the stat weights of all the champions. Not talking about multipliers, but the stat weights. So looking at Arbiter for no particular reason, we have 1068 base attack here. Now, you probably wouldn't notice this, but I use the same gear set for every single nuke champion that I have ever done for a showcase. It's always the same 4 savage pieces and the same 2 cruel pieces. The only thing that changes, of course, is the accessories because they are bound by their faction. But the fact that I can keep I don't know, consistent, I guess, 6 pieces gives me the luxury of being able to test and say, okay, this champion's really good, this champion's not as good. Now, you might be thinking, Murder, why don't you just equalize all of the stats as you get them? Because it's not realistic for any account watching, correct? I'll expand on that just a little bit here. So if I build a Rotos, and let's say I have 8,000 attack, 350 crit damage, it may take me significantly more gear to do that on a new champion based on the baseline attack, based on the accessories that I have, and it's much easier for me as a player to just take one set, put it on another one and say, okay, is this champion good? How does he fare against a champion that I'm comfortable with, that I know how he does in all of these situations, because I have that experience with all of the other champions since I use the same set base. So whether it's 100 attack less, 300 more depending on their base stats. I don't even consider the multipliers, and I explained why before. It has to do with the ease of use in the actual role that they're going to provide for the champion. So kind of all of these ideas coming together here, and you can kind of see full circle as to why I gear champions with such high quality gear. And it actually did surprise me. It's definitely been more recently, I want to say in the last 3 or 4 months when people are watching my videos, I do make the comment of saying, do not focus on my gear, focus on the concept of what I'm talking about. And a lot of players really grabbed onto that and said, thank you, like this is the quality content we would expect from my channel. I mean, that's kind of the precedent I did set out when I started this channel, and it's really good. It makes me feel good, at least, to see people commenting and saying, I get it now. There's always going to be comments that I'm going to get saying, this gear's unrealistic, I cannot replicate this, but one thing that I try to stress multiple times in each video, and it's kind of still overlooked, is every single account's different, everyone has different gear qualities. It could be similar, but no matter what I do, it's more harmful to lower my gear down to show someone stage 13 and not stage 15. It's just not a good angle. It's not a good idea to do, because all bosses scale upwards. So if I can make something work on stage 15, you can bet with 100% certainty that wherever you are in the game, if you copy that team and use the best stats that you have, you will get the furthest in whatever I'm talking about by using that same team on whatever stage you're currently at progression-wise. If you think that I'm trying to tell you guys by using these 5 champions, pushing all gear, all faction guardian, all empowerment level awakening aside, that you can get to the highest stage with just the 5 champions I'm talking about, you're trolling. There's no way you think that. And I've seen people comment this before, that they have the champions but they don't have the gear. That's never been the point any kind of content I've ever made. I've never said all you need is these 5 champions and you will get to the end of whatever content I'm discussing here. However, going back to my other point and why I've been a harsh critic on a lot of other content creators, is the reverse is possible. If they showcase stage 12, stage 13 of a certain team, it is very possible, if not likely, I say likely because of the amount of horror stories I've seen on Discord, the official one, and inside Discords that I'm in for Raid, that teams don't work the higher you get. And what is it? Are they lacking the gear? No, they're not lacking the gear. Those teams just cannot compete using the same tactics that were used on those lower stages. They have to change up the synergy of the entire group. They have to change up the gear sets that are using, not the quality of them, and then they can push forward, like using stun sets. Just as an example, sometimes it's frost set. If you get hit, you freeze the enemy, giving you extra CC. Not often, but I have seen a use for that in some of the takeovers that I've done. But this is just my point here. You will never be steered wrong by looking at a video of insanely geared champions pursuing content, as long as you understand. And I mean, I know there are content creators that have unfortunately showed the ugly side of what I do, where they say, this is free, this is easy, all you need are these 5 champions. Kind of like I said, something that I said that I've never said in the past, and they've done this before. You guys probably know who they are. They're the only like close to endgame kind of bigger YouTubers out there that say, this guy's insane, and then you go and watch them and they're using the most broken gear, and if you don't use the most broken gear on them, they're literally useless. I've had examples like that before, and I've specifically tried to build as much synergy as I could around those champions to make it so that's not the case when you do not have the equivalent gear that I'm currently showcasing you. And you hate to see it. So a lot of like the beef that I do have with a lot of the other content creators I've had in the past, at least, none really right now, mostly because I'm not watching too much content of theirs, but it's kind of because of the recklessness of their content. Because when you're giving someone advice, you have to realize that people are spending money, right? They're spending money on their accounts here, and when you're giving advice that can affect the amount of money someone spent, I don't know, I'm just not okay with that. You have to put in effort. I understand YouTube's a business. You throw out these zero effort videos just to get views, just to get money. Well, you guys know what I'm talking about. You see it countless times from pretty much every single content creator. I'm not going to say everyone, but pretty much everyone. If they do upload every single day, you will see there's a much lower quality of video than something that I'm going to put forward, because I don't feel the pressure to upload every day. As you can kind of see from the break, I play other games, I have fun. The account takeovers is the majority part of my income. I made sure that was the case so I could always provide top quality content for this game. And listen, I don't like clickbait. Now, people can say, well, Murder, you clickbait. I'm not talking about that type of clickbait that gets you interested, riled up based on my thumbnail. I'm talking about a thumbnail and video idea that does not translate to what the actual content of the video is, which is what I'm talking about. Players getting baited, being shown a team of 4 rares and 1 legendary that require the most ridiculous gear possible that no one that's limited to 4 rares and 1 legendary will ever have, and saying GG easy, this team is brain dead, it's so free, and then hundreds of players try to replicate this and they just can't do it. There are a few who can do it for some reason that think it's fun to build it when they have an account that can clearly go above and beyond and use a better team, and I don't know, that's just the kind of stuff I do not like. So that is my reasoning as to why I always gear champions to the highest level, showing you that they're valid all the way at that high level. It's not going to drop off, and if it does drop off, I'm going to let you know in that video. So I did want to kind of make this just to clear that up. I don't think I've ever addressed this in the 2-3 years I've been making YouTube videos. I've addressed it in the comment section before, for sure, many times. I've been very aggressive in the addressing of people, because it's usually people that's saying, oh, sick, now all I need is 7,000 attack, 400 crit damage, 100% crit rate, and I'll be able to replicate this. And it's like, no, all you have to do is apply the stat allocation that I'm doing based on the content I'm doing and lower it down to what you can do for your champion, and then apply it to whatever progress you're trying to achieve. Things in this game are very linear in terms of your account based on your progress. And I do know, and I think there is some type of ego thing with players that kind of speak out on that in the comment section. They're saying, there's no way I cannot do what he's showing because my gear isn't good enough or my knowledge isn't high enough to have been able to replicate the same thing he did. And quite often that is the case. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm perfect. I've also been in those situations where I haven't been able to do something, and it's simply because I wasn't smart enough to figure out the right synergy to go perfectly together. It happens to everybody. However, I'm not going to completely disregard anybody that shows me something that's really good just because I wasn't able to figure it out myself. So I do think that's a huge point, because a lot of players do not play their account to the max potential. I definitely don't. I'm not a computer. I don't think anybody does. I mean, maybe if you played every single day since launch and you like literally in your spare time, you just read the index, you read the skill abilities, you know all of the multipliers, then maybe you can play this game to the fullest potential of whatever's on your account. I still don't think so, because there's so much customization that we don't even understand today about this game, despite it having been out for so long. I guarantee you in the next year or so, someone's going to figure out something crazy about champion synergies that are already in the game. Just mark my words on that. So not that I'm trying to reveal anything, but that was the main point that I was trying to get across here as far as why I always show the best of the best. You might not be able to relate to it in the video, but it's very easy for a player to say, okay, let me see what I have in my account, let me apply it to this, and you can look at the amount of HP that's being taken from the waves, compare it to the video, say, okay, I'm slightly behind where he was in the video, which means my gear is a bit lacking, so I probably have to drop down one more level or figure out a way to add an increased attack buff, increase crit damage buff, or do something to amplify my damage, Gerp Tuck, Bad L, anything like that. And this is where I've seen some of the greatest responses in the comment section saying, I didn't use your team exactly, Murder, but I made one swap in. That is the goal, to get you guys thinking, not to just lay everything out in front of you, because it doesn't work that way in this game. You can always figure out different combinations of champions that go together that are going to skyrocket your progression, and it's not going to be as straightforward as most people would probably like it, where they can just copy and paste the team and there's going to be all content. The game would be crazy boring that way. I know that for a fact because I've copied teams before, and I was like, okay, now I can farm this new content that I wanted to do, and I had to put no effort into it, and now it's done. It's literally something that I hit auto every single day. I don't even have to watch it. I can walk away. So that is the reasoning behind why I always gear champions to the best of my ability, so I can compare it on my end, because I always use the same gear sets, and to show you guys that the value stays all the way to the end of the game, and these aren't champions you're simply going to vault and replace after you get to the highest quality of gear and the final content of this game. So give me your thoughts on the video. I know that was kind of a lot to unpack. It's definitely something I wanted to talk about for a while, as probably you saw. So if you enjoyed this content, smash the like button, subscribe, turn the notification bell, and I will see you all in my next upload.